Hi guys, welcome to another Road Pilgrim car review. And today we are super excited because we have a rather interesting car on review. This very adorable and cute looking vehicle that you see behind me is actually the ORA Good Cat, and today we are going to review the car. Now, I think the ORA Good Cat comes in at a very interesting time in Singapore because currently there has been a little bit of an influx of new EVs into the Singapore car market, and the ORA Good Cat just so happens to be one of the more affordable, more accessible options in the market. But despite being quite affordable, what we have seen so far from the car is that its fit and finish is actually quite a little bit above average, and we're very excited to show those things to you. So for today's review, we are going to check out the exterior, do a little bit of a walk around. We're going to jump inside and take a look at some of the interesting features that you can find inside the car, and of course we are going to go take it for a drive. But before we do all that, if you are thinking about selling your used car in Singapore, be sure to check out the link in the description box below, because through that link we'll be able to provide you the highest possible quote for your used car or help you to consign it on the open market for an even better price. And I'm also very happy to announce that from now on, Road Pilgrim will also be able to assist you with all your car insurance needs. So whether you are buying a brand new car or buying a new car, meaning buying a brand new used car, or seeking renewal for your car, COE, insurance renewal for your car, check out the link in our description box as well. Request a quote from us. It is completely free, there are no transaction fees, and with one quote you'll be able to compare the best quotes from all the leading insurers in Singapore. So be sure to do that. And with that, let's get on with the review. Alright, so jumping straight into it, this is the ORA Good Cat, and the car that you see in front of us is in a very lovely two-tone colour. So the bottom half of the car is in this very nice beige. And actually from a distance it actually looks quite pink, which I think is quite nice. And then the top half of the car is actually in sort of a brown, bronzy kind of shade. So depending on the choice of color that you choose, actually this two-tone variation is also different. And what is also quite interesting about the car is that the interior also kind of matches the exterior of the car, in a sense where if you choose different exterior color options, you actually do get a different color interior. So I think that is a very nice bit of customization, so to speak. But jumping straight into the design of the car, I think the car looks extremely adorable, and it's got very nice proportions as well. So from the front, what you get is a car that looks a bit like a Porsche 911, like a baby 911, so to speak, and I think that's actually quite appealing. I'm sure you have seen in from press outlets in other countries there actually is the existence of a sportier GT line body kit available on the ORA Good Cat. Unfortunately, we don't have that in Singapore just yet, but I think this car does have quite a bit of potential for modifications to make the car look a little bit better. So down the side, when we talk about proportions of the car, I think the car actually looks very balanced. There's a nice little pouncy look to the car, and honestly it looks like a very agile looking car, and needless to say, this is a rather youthful and energetic design. So I'm quite fond of this design. And of course, branding wise, I actually think the ORA badge at the back here is actually really cool. It's got this upmarket feel to it that I really like. But I must say, the feature that I think is the most standout for me is this light bar that's integrated into the rear glass panel, which I think looks really awesome. So in terms of wheel size, what we have are 18-inch wheels as standard. So these aren't small, but I think it all helps the car to look a little bit more youthful and upmarket. I'm not sure what you guys think, but I think just, you know, naturally the ORA Good Cat does lend itself to, I feel like it's going to appeal a little bit more to ladies. But when I was chatting with the folks over at ORA, they did tell me that there have been quite a lot of interest from males as well. Personally, I do think that the features are a little bit soft, but then again, I guess from the perspective of a new age male, this isn't going to be so much of an issue. But aside from the very cute and quirky exterior, I want to show you the interior because I think that's where the ORA Good Cat really stands out. So let's go. Alright, so now we are inside the ORA Good Cat, and as you can see, even as an entry-level car, there was nice little features like the sort of comfort access thing going on, where the seat kind of moves me forward when I get into the car. And there are a few more little quirky features that I think people will enjoy in the ORA Good Cat. But to get things started, let's talk a little bit about its design, because I think the ORA Good Cat probably has one of the most interesting interiors of any new car that we've ever seen. So around the dashboard and throughout the entire car, you can see that there's this retro modern feel going on. So it feels a little bit like a classic car blended into a modern EV, which I think is really interesting, and I think it's a really good way to stand out from the crowd without having to overstyle an interior. So what you get in front of you is of course a two-tone coloured interior. So you've got two tones on your dash here and your seats as well, and you've got this lovely instrument cluster here. This is touchscreen, your infotainment unit, along with a digital driver's display. And what's kind of nice about this is that it's actually really nicely integrated into this housing here, which I think gives it a feel of a more premium car, because it isn't just an infotainment unit that's slapped onto the front of the dashboard. It does feel like it's very well integrated, so I really like that. The other thing I really like about this system is that the finish on the surface is actually a little bit matte, and in a sense, I do feel like it doesn't catch your fingerprints so much. Generally speaking, you know, obviously in harsh sunlight, you'll still be able to see the fingerprints that you leave behind, but in normal settings, actually it appears to be quite fingerprint free, which I think will go a long way in terms of maintenance of the car. It means you're not going to be fussing about like wiping it all the time. Driver's display, this comes in the dark mode as well, so that's very comfortable to look at. Personally, I'm a big fan of dark mode. I don't like to use the white background interior displays, and all this information here is very clearly displayed and adjustable through your multi-function steering wheel here. This steering wheel does feel a little bit big in my opinion. I would prefer it to be a little bit smaller, but I think in line with the retro modern design, it is probably also, it can be said it's quite appropriate, because generally older cars do tend to have slightly larger steering wheels. Now, moving down the center here, you've got nice big aircon vents here across. You know, of course the aircon vents don't extend into the middle here, but you've got nice big aircon vents, conventional aircon vents, and aircon vents that are actually positioned in a decently appropriate position, rather than, you know, some cars have their aircon vents down here, which I really dislike. And I think the real kind of visual piece in the car is probably the control panel down here, which is a simple panel. It doesn't control much. You have your aircon on off, and then of course your AC on off, and then you've got your front and rear demisters along with your hazard light switch. But this is done in the style of a analog switch, which I think is really cool. Some of you might remember that Mini Coopers also have this style of switches, and not to say that the ORA is modeled after the Mini, but I think we haven't really seen too many cars that utilize this sort of styling, and I'm actually really fond of it. I think it looks really good. Further down, you've got some storage spaces, USB ports, cup holders, two decent sized ones, and then in the middle here, you've got a wireless charger, some storage space, as well as your drive selector. So of course, being an EV, you've got reverse, neutral and drive, along with your parking brake as well. One thing rather quirky about this drive selector though is that it's not a 3-step selector where you move where you adjust it to, for example, if you go to reverse, you kind of move it one notch to the left and then it bounces back. It's actually a free turning wheel, so you just kind of turn it and you can keep turning it, which is rather interesting, right? But of course, you know, you will still be in reverse gear. You won't really It's not like you're going to go into any other gear, but it's just a bit strange to me. And then neutral is 1 notch to the right, and then drive is of course another notch to the right. So park is just a tap of the center button right there. So with all that said, if I were to kind of consolidate my thoughts about the interior of the ORA Good Cat, I think it's a really nice interior. The car is actually priced quite closely to the BYD Dolphin, which has the title of being the most affordable EV that you can buy in Singapore at the moment. And the ORA Good Cat is just a tiny little bit more expensive. But I think the ORA Good Cat does take the interior styling to a whole different level. It's definitely quite a bit nicer than the BYD Dolphin. Partially because of the design, but also because it has features. Wait for it. It has features like a massage chair. So the driver and the front passenger actually have access to a massage chair function and ventilated seats as well, which is really cool in this price point. So even at this entry-level price point, you get such nice features, which I think is really good value for money. And of course, you got other nice things as well. You've got a panoramic roof. Let me see. So I'm not going to open the sunroof. It is a sunroof as well, not just a panoramic roof. So it actually opens up fairly full length. So I think your rear passengers will also find it quite pleasing. But in general, I think what the ORA Good Cat does really well is that despite materials not being super premium, so if you really kind of touch the dashboard here, you know, the material isn't particularly soft or luxurious, but from a visual standpoint, when you look at it, it actually looks really expensive. And I think that's generally the theme that goes on in this car, right? Because being an entry-level car, you know, nobody's expecting it to have like luscious amounts of leather or soft touch materials, but still, when you look at the components that are built into the car, you do get a sense that this is a little bit more premium than the next car. So I think that is super well done from ORA. And with that, let's jump into the back and check out the rear, because interior space or rear leg room in the ORA is actually also not bad. So let's go check that out. Okay, so this is the rear of the ORA Good Cat, and despite being a footprint-friendly hatchback, you can see that space in the rear is actually pretty decent. So my driver's seat, this is in my regular driving position, and I'm 175 meters tall, and this is the amount of leg room that I have in the rear. And keep in mind though that in this particular car, I seem to be sitting rather far back, because as you can see, the B pillar is here and my seat is actually a little bit further back. If you watch the rest of my reviews, I typically sit a little bit closer, but somehow in this car I just felt a little bit more comfortable as well. And partially also because of the comfort SS, when I open the car door to get out of the car, the seat actually moves back to allow me more space to get out. So actually this is in the comfort SS mode already. So in reality, you would have a little bit more space in front. You can't see this right here, but yesterday I had to actually ferry my 10-month-old in this car, and I put in my Maxi-Cosi Isofix base, and actually it fits really well. And to an extent, it actually fits almost as well as it does in my 5 Series, my F10. So I was actually pretty surprised, because loading it was all really easy. And that also means that the ORA Good Cat is actually perfectly usable as a family car. I've actually got quite a decent amount of space, and assuming you are a lady driver and you are seated in the driver's seat of this car, and your seat is quite a bit more forward than it would be in my position, then actually your rear passengers have quite a bit of space as well, quite a lot more space. There is a panoramic roof, as I showed you earlier, so the roof is a little bit thicker than normal, and therefore headroom is a little bit sort of compromised. But then, as you can see, the architecture of the roof is also quite properly sculpted at the angle here. It doesn't just randomly slope in, and as a result, I actually still have headroom, and I'm not actually hitting the top of the roof yet. And if I were to take a more natural sitting position, you know, a bit more slouchy, actually my headroom is quite a lot better as well. It's pretty comfortable at the back here actually, to be honest. The position of the rear bench is also not one that's unnecessarily elevated like you get in most cars. This one feels quite nice and flat, and so you don't get this feeling like you're overly propped up in the back of a car, which I actually really enjoy. I think this is one of the features or one of those characteristics that make riding in a car like that more comfortable over long distances. Moving down here, there are no aircon vents at the rear, but that's okay because the ORA Good Cat is a fairly small car. There is not much of a transmission tunnel. It's almost completely flat, and for all intents and purposes I would say this is a flat floor. So that means shuffling between the two seats is actually really comfortable and easy. And if you are a young and small family, so for example mommy, daddy and baby, right? So daddy is driving, mommy's at the rear, baby's in the ISOFIX car seat on the left here. If your kid does fuss about during a drive, it's actually really easy and convenient for the parent at the rear to attend to the child because there is no hump on the floor. So I think that's really good. So interior space is all quite wonderful and quite I think the utilization of space is excellent in this car. However, this does come at a small price, and that small price is that the boot on the ORA Good Cat is actually pretty small. Now, it will still be able to fit quite a few duffel bags for you to take short trips, and if you're using it for grocery shopping, you'll definitely have no issues. But yesterday, I had to put a full-size stroller into the rear, and I must say that I had quite a bit of difficulty fitting it in. But that being said, to be fair to that statement, my stroller is one of those older ones that are really quite bulky. So I think if you're using one of those new age single hand folding strollers that are lightweight, I think you'll definitely have no issues with that. But just something to take note of, if you got one of those big and large strollers, like full-size ones with the suspension and stuff, this car might be a bit of a challenge to fit that into. So you definitely want to have something a little bit more lightweight and a little bit smaller if you are thinking of going down that route. So as you can see, the interior of the ORA Good Cat is something that I think has been quite well thought out, both at the front and at the rear. But what is the ORA Good Cat like to drive? Let's go find out. Okay, so now we are back in the driver's seat, and before we head out for our drive, I want to get some specifications out of the way. So this car, the ORA Good Cat, houses a 63 kilowatt-hour battery, and this is good. The car produces about 141 horsepower. About the end on my windscreen. Sorry, I was distracted by the end on the windscreen. It has about 200-ish, low 200s Newton meters of torque, and this should get the ORA Good Cat from 0 to 100 in about 11 seconds, which is not groundbreaking by any way. But nonetheless, being an EV, we expect the torque to be fairly accessible. But let's go take the car for a drive and see how it feels, because being a hatchback, I think it should be quite an interesting car to drive. So let me just let some traffic clear off first. Okay, so one of the first things I realized about the ORA Good Cat is actually the fact that, okay, let me just pull up here. So one of the interesting things is that every time you start the car, you have to select your, or rather the car starts in the most with the highest amount of regenerative braking. There are 3 levels, so light, normal, and strong. It always starts in strong, I think, because it prioritizes efficiency and regeneration. But if, like me, you don't really enjoy the feeling of heavy brake regeneration, then you will need to turn it to light every time you start the car. I believe the guys at ORA have told me that they are working to kind of see if there's an option to kind of make this stay in the same setting. So hopefully by the time you check out the car in real life, you would have this sorted out. One thing I also quite like about the way it presents its regenerative braking is that single pedal mode is a specific option, so you select it specifically to enter single pedal drive mode. Whereas in other cars, or some other cars, single pedal drive mode is basically just the low or the highest regen setting. So it's not always 100% clear whether or not you are in single pedal mode, or rather you're not exactly sure if it will stop the car for you. But in the ORA Good Cat, that's abundantly clear. It says single pedal mode, and once you activate that, you're very clear that the car will come to a complete stop at some point. So that's that. Let's go take the car for a drive. Moving out of the car park now. So at lower speeds, the steering weight is actually not as light as I expected it to be. And this is said in a good way actually, because I'm generally not fond of paper-light steering. So you actually do feel like the car feels like a larger car, so to speak, like a larger thing. And it's got a nice steering weight for general usage. Of course, this is also adjustable, but just in the default setting, the steering weight is already quite pleasant, so no complaints there. However, what I did kind of realize is that steering ratios are a little bit low in this car, so you do feel like you are turning quite a lot as compared to another car in that sense. And with that in mind, when you are driving a little bit faster or in a slightly more dynamic driving situation, the wreck does feel like it's a little bit slower. But of course, you know, when I say that, it's not to say that it's bad, it's just something that you need to get used to, I feel. Because I think with cars like the BYD Dolphin, for example, I think that probably handles a little bit better in that sense. It's a little bit more sharper and a little bit more direct in terms of its steering. In the ORA Good Cat, things feel a little bit more laid back. So perhaps not as fun to chuck around a corner, but also on the flip side, this slower steering rack does make it kind of nicer when you are cruising along in the car for longer distances, because the car just feels a little bit more laid back, a little bit more wafty, you know, like you're just kind of cruising and relaxing, and like it's not so twitchy in a sense. So it is also very pleasant in a different way. If you are interested to check out my review of the BYD Dolphin, you can actually click up here, and that will bring you to the video review of the BYD Dolphin. But coming back to the ORA Good Cat, I think the steering setup of the car does mean that if you are looking for something zippy and fun and that feels a little bit more lightweight to throw around town, I think you will probably have a better bet with the BYD Dolphin. But if you're looking for something a little bit more all-rounded that you can use for longer journeys as well, then I think the ORA Good Cat probably does the job a little bit better. And I think it also lends itself to appeal to the right kind of demographic, because I think people who are looking at the ORA Good Cat, you know, based on the interior design, the exterior design, I think it's very abundantly clear that the car is positioned sort of as a lifestyle tool, or like something that, you know, fits into the lifestyle of someone who is a little bit more discerning, somebody who pays attention to the design, the fit, the finish of their vehicle. And so a person who is buying a car for those reasons is probably not looking at the car as a performance tool, and therefore I think having a slightly more laid-back steering dynamic is probably okay, and probably a little bit more in line with what they're after anyway. So I feel like the ORA Good Cat does its best work on slow and relaxed drives actually. In terms of the way the body handles, it is actually pretty firm and pretty nice. So you don't get a lot of body roll in the corners. It's just that perhaps, you know, if you're the kind of person that enjoys that sharp steering feel, like your nose, the car's nose just darts into the corner when you pull your wheel, I don't think the ORA Good Cat is probably the kind of car that you are after. So there's a tiny bit of it's a bit more progressive, not so sharp. But aside from that, car rides pretty well. It is on the firm side, but I think that's to be expected from a car in this segment. Nothing very surprising there. So if I were to put it into this corner, it actually sits pretty flat, pretty comfortable. I don't feel I don't feel uncomfortable in any way, so that's really nice. In terms of power, the power kicks in a fairly linear way. So it's not the most powerful EV out there, and I think nobody is expecting it to be. In that sense, I think for what's that buzz doing? I think for newer drivers, or drivers who are perhaps not so used to the torque and power afforded by or accorded by an EV, I think this will be a really good starting point as well, because nothing too jarring and nothing too crazy for you to work with. It's all quite manageable. Basically, it's a very chill car, and I think if you treat it in a chill manner, then I think the car will be quite rewarding to own and drive. Now, if you have any other questions about the ORA Good Cat, about the way it drives, about some of its features, be sure to put your questions in the comment section below. I will do my best to answer them. And of course, if you have enjoyed this video or if you have found it useful in any way, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel, because we've got new reviews coming out every single week. It would be awesome if you could join us for those reviews as well. Now, before we go, just a very quick gentle reminder: if you are thinking about selling your used car in Singapore, check out the link in the description below. Through that link, we will be able to afford you or accord you the highest valuation and quote for your car, or help you to consign it on the open market for an even better price. And if you are thinking about renewing your car insurance in Singapore, or if you are buying a car and you need an insurance quote, be sure to check out our other link in the description box, because through that link we will be able to get you a one-stop insurance quote. So fill up one form and we'll send you the quotes from multiple leading insurers in Singapore, and for both of these quotes, it's completely free to inquire. There are no hidden transaction fees, so be sure to check it out if you are interested. If not, as usual, please take care of yourself, stay safe, and we will see you next time. Bye bye.